You don't forget the day your world gets stolen. Not piece by piece, but in one clean signature you never wrote. I'd been gone 3 months, overseeing a water reclamation project in Utah, my 15,000-acre ranch back home in New Mexico, the place my grandfather, carved out of dust and grit, was supposed to be in good hands, fenced, patrolled, safe. When my foreman called, his voice cracked like an old wire. "Mr. Hale, there's construction equipment on your south field." I thought he was mistaken. The south field was sacred, the oldest stretch of land, where my father had planted cottonwood trees to mark our property line. I drove all night, hit the dirt road by sunrise, and when I crested the hill overlooking the valley, I froze. Rows of bulldozers tearing through mesquite and juniper. Survey flags cutting through the wheat, concrete slabs half poured, and in the middle of it all, a sign. Future site of Pine Ridge Estates, luxury homes by Horizon Development. 15,000 acres. My acres. Dust rose around me as I hit the brakes. My old Chevy groaned as if it felt the betrayal too. I climbed out, boots crunching gravel, and walked toward a man in a white hard hat. He held a clipboard and smiled like he'd been expecting me. "This land's private," I said, my voice calm but tight. He barely looked up. "Not anymore, sir. This property's been legally transferred to Pine Ridge HOA Holdings, all approved through county records." He even handed me a packet, glossy paper, blue stamps, neat signatures. And there it was, my name, Ethan Hale, except I'd never signed a damn thing. The world went quiet, except for the hum of engines. I flipped through every page, land deeds, power of attorney, notarized forms, all forged. Down to my initials, the HOA president, Charles Denton, had somehow pulled it off. He'd been trying to buy out my land for years. I'd told him no every time. Guess no wasn't good enough. That afternoon, I stormed into the Pine Ridge HOA headquarters, a glass and stone building that looked more like a bank than a neighborhood office. Inside, Denton sat behind a marble desk, legs crossed, the smirk of a man who'd already won. "Mr. Hale," he said, like we were old friends. "The sale's finalized. You signed, we recorded, and construction's underway. I suggest you take the payout while it's still generous." He slid a check across the table, an insult in ink. I didn't even look at the number. "I was in Utah," I said. "Ask your forger about time zones," he chuckled. "Then you'll have no problem proving that in court. Though I'd be careful. We've got Judge Bowman on our side, and she's not fond of ranchers who think they're above zoning law." My hands clenched on the table's edge. "You forged my signature." "That's fraud," he leaned forward. "Prove it." It wasn't anger that hit me then. It was clarity. The kind that burns hotter than rage. That night, I drove out to my mother's place in the valley. She was 76, frail but sharp as a knife. When I told her what happened, she didn't even blink. "Your father warned this would come," she said quietly. "There's something he left you, in the old smokehouse behind the barn." We went out there together under the moonlight. I pried up the floorboards until the wood splintered. Beneath it, a rusted metal box wrapped in cloth. Inside were the original land patents, signed by President Truman himself, and every title transfer since, all real. All sealed, none bearing any HOA name, but that wasn't the only surprise. In the corner of the box, folded like a map, was a yellowed letter in my father's handwriting. "If they ever come for what's ours, follow the paper trail, not the dirt. The land only matters if you can prove it on paper." I didn't sleep that night. I scanned every document, every page, every signature, and somewhere between those dusty records, I noticed something strange. One of the recent tax receipts listed a payment address that wasn't mine. It led to a P.O. box rented by Pine Ridge HOA Trust. They'd been paying my property taxes for months, quietly, shifting ownership under county radar. By morning, I knew this wasn't just theft. It was a coordinated operation. Denton, the HOA, the developer, the judge, so I called in a favor. My old friend and tech analyst, Lena Ortiz, who once helped me trace offshore shell companies for the Department of Energy. She laughed when I told her. "You think a suburban HOA stole 15,000 acres? "I don't think," I said. "I know," 3 days later. She sent me encrypted files, screenshots of doctored emails, altered county timestamps, and fake meeting minutes uploaded from the HOA's own IP address. It was all there, proof. When I printed the evidence, the pages filled my entire dining table. I stared at them for hours until the pattern became clear. They hadn't just stolen my ranch. They'd laundered it through their own homeowners association to hide the sale to Horizon Development. And somehow, they thought they'd buried every trail. But my father's words echoed, "Follow the paper trail." And that's exactly what I planned to do. When I showed Lena the forged deed in person, she whistled low. "Ethan, this isn't some small-town scam. This looks corporate. Whoever did this knew exactly how to play county systems." We spent the next week dissecting every document. Metadata, timestamps, IP logs, registry records. All of it pointed back to the same small cluster of names. Charles Denton, HOA president. Judge Bowman, who approved the transfer. And Horizon Development, the company buying the land through shell corporations. The deeper we dug, the uglier it got. The HOA's internal minutes showed board votes that never happened. Every approval was signed off by the same two members, both of whom had resigned 2 years earlier. Forgery on top of forgery. But then Lena found something that made my blood run cold. The HOA's land registration had expired. Every HOA in New Mexico has to renew its community registration every 10 years. Pine Ridge's last renewal? 2013, which meant as of 2 years ago, the HOA itself no longer legally existed. Charles Denton had been running a ghost entity, using a defunct registration to sell property that wasn't his to sell. My property. That night, I sat on the porch with Mom. The moonlight caught her silver hair, and she said softly, "Your father used to say, 'Ethan, never fight a snake by the tail. Cut it off at the head.' You know where the head is." She was right. It wasn't the workers, or even Horizon. It was Denton, and the paper trail that made him look legitimate. So I drove into Santa Fe the next morning, straight to County Registrar's office. I told the clerk my ranch had been sold under a defunct HOA. She laughed until I showed her the expired registration records. Then her smile faded. "I'll have to elevate this," she said. I leaned in. "Do that. And while you're at it, check who renewed the land rights in the name of Pine Ridge HOA Holdings. You'll find a fake entity registered from a UPS store mailbox." Her eyes widened. She knew what that meant. By sunset, I had official confirmation. The HOA had no legal standing, and their development deal was already void. But I didn't tell Denton yet. Not until I could hit harder. Lena came up with the plan. If the HOA no longer exists, then technically the land reverts to the county for reassignment. You could buy it back, through a shell company, before they even realize it's gone. It was poetic. They forged a sale to take my ranch. I'd buy their homes, legally. We created Hale County Trust, registered quietly, filed all paperwork through an agent 2 counties over, and waited for the clerk's notice to post publicly. When the defunct HOA's assets went to silent auction, only one bid came in, ours. $12. That's how much I paid for every parcel of land under Pine Ridge HOA. Every yard, every driveway, every cul-de-sac, now technically part of my ranch again. When the deeds came through, I almost laughed. The paper trail that destroyed me was now my weapon. We mailed the new ownership letters that week, and I'll never forget the sound of that first phone call. It was Denton, his voice shaking, furious. "What the hell is this, Hale? You're claiming you own the entire HOA?" "I'm not claiming," I said. "I'm confirming. You can't." "I can." And I did. "Your HOA expired 10 years ago. Everything you built on top of it legally belongs to the original landowner." "That's me," he went silent. Then, barely audible, "You don't know who you're dealing with." "I do," I said. "A man who forged my name, and now lives on my land rent-free. By the end of the week, eviction notices went out. Each letter stamped with county verification. Every home under Pine Ridge HOA Holdings was now leased property of Hale County Trust. Some residents called me, confused, scared. I didn't blame them. They were victims too. I offered them fair purchase agreements. No hidden fees. No HOA, but Denton didn't call again. Instead, he sent lawyers. 3 of them showed up at my gate one morning, suits sharp, voices sharper. They waved injunction papers like swords. I let them talk. When they finished, I slid my own stack across the hood of my truck. Property deeds, registry confirmations, federal filings. Their faces drained of color. One whispered, "You actually bought the HOA." "Correction," I said. "I bought their homes." The HOA was free. By that afternoon, news trucks lined the highway. Local rancher legally reclaims land from HOA. The headline went viral overnight. People called it revenge. But standing in the wheat field that evening, watching the sunset spill gold across the valley, I didn't feel vengeance. I felt justice, quiet, earned, and long overdue, and I wasn't done yet. Because buried in the HOA's files, Lena had found one last name. A man connected to Horizon Development. The real architect behind the forgery, Thomas Vance. And if Denton was the head of the snake, Thomas was the hand that fed it. By the time Lena traced Thomas Vance's signature trail, the man had already moved on to another state. Denver, new project, new name, same corruption. But he'd made one mistake. His old company emails still routed through Horizon Development servers, and Ryan, my old IT contact from Austin, knew exactly how to retrieve metadata from archived. Attachments. What we found sealed everything. Vance had orchestrated a series of fake land evaluations, tied directly to Pine Ridge. He'd authorized payments to Denton and even sent templates for the forged signatures. The proof wasn't just circumstantial, it was engineered. Digital fingerprints, timestamps, even GPS coordinates from his phone the day the sale was filed. We now had a case strong enough to collapse an empire. Lena and I walked into the district attorney's office with 3 boxes of evidence. The DA, a weathered man with a slow voice and a sharper sense for truth, looked through our documents for an hour in silence. Then he nodded. "Mr. Hale," he said, "if what you're claiming checks out, the HOA board, Horizon Development, and Mr. Vance are all going to court. And likely prison. That was enough for me. I didn't need their apology. I needed accountability. The press got wind fast. News vans started parking outside my ranch gate again. Reporters shouting questions like, I was the villain who'd taken homes from innocent families. But this time, I didn't hide. I stood in front of the cameras and told the story exactly as it happened. The forged signature, the expired HOA, the false filings, the way they'd buried a century-old ranch beneath greed. I ended with one line that echoed through every outlet that night. You can't steal what you never owned. A week later, federal agents raided Horizon Development's offices. Denton was led away in handcuffs, red-faced and shouting. Vance tried to flee the country, got caught in Dallas. And Judge Bowman, the man who'd quietly approved the forged documents, resigned before charges hit his desk. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just shows up with paperwork. But I wasn't ready for what came next. A letter arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside, a single page. You might have won, but this isn't over. No signature. Just a faint Horizon watermark. Lena told me to ignore it. But I couldn't. I'd spent too many nights staring out at those fields, thinking about what my father said. Protect the soil, and it will protect you. So I built something better than revenge. The Pine Ridge lands. All 15,000 acres were restored under a community trust. Every family who lived there before could buy their home back at the original price. No HOA, no fake bylaws, no hidden power. Just ownership. The town rallied. What had once been a battleground became a cooperative. People planted again, opened small businesses, turned abandoned lots into parks. For the first time, the valley felt alive. When the sun set that summer, the wheat fields shimmered like they used to. Gold, endless, proud. Mom stood beside me on the porch, her voice calm. Your father would have been proud. You didn't just take back land, Ethan. You gave it back right, I smiled. This isn't just our ranch anymore, I said. It's everyone's. And that night, as the cicadas hummed and the wind moved softly through the grass, I realized something simple but true. Revenge might taste sweet, but rebuilding lasts longer. Because in the end, you can't erase legacy. You can only betray it. And for people like Denton and Vance, the soil remembers.